Hi, my name is Shantell Quintanar. I'm a realtor in Denver, Colorado.
Hi, I'm Laura Melquist, a realtor in Colorado and Minnesota.
This is the M.O.R.E podcast. We are the mothers of real estate. We are really talking about family, real estate, wealth building, and anything related to just building a great community. Hi, welcome to the M.O.R.E podcast. I'm Shantell Quintanar.
And I'm Laura Melquist.
So today we wanted to talk about turning lemons into lemonade, to be as cheesy as I possibly can be. I think a lot of times in life when things feel like they're falling apart, you're really getting ready to catapult to the next level. You're figuring out something that's going to level you up. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
I've always been impressed at people's resilience to say, like, look, this is what was going on and I turned it around. Or we also do sometimes see those people that they kind of lie down, and it's hard to decide which one of those to be sometimes, especially when you feel like you have no more gusto to put through there. What do you feel is a time where you had a situation that was just like, yeah, this should definitely knock me out, and how you turned that into something positive?
That is a great question.
Thank you.
I think sometimes things actually do knock you out.
Yeah.
For a short, long period of time.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes you feel like you're digging that hole and it's just getting deeper and deeper and you need to get out of the hole. And I think for me, give me a minute to think about it.
Yeah.
I'm going to flip that question over to you.
Okay.
We'll jet back.
I have a couple examples that popped into mind, even just thinking about the scenario. One of the ones that I would say is I was in a relationship on and off for about 16 years, I think. And we got married for a short period of time. And I never wanted to get married. I was not that little girl that was like, the wedding dress, and here's what I genuinely was like, I'm good. Like, because I never saw successful marriages, right? Like, I never really saw that as something that was something to aspire about, because I didn't see the good side of that. I saw the, like, you're just taking a beating all the time, literally or figuratively. And so I wasn't interested in that. And then when I finally decided to, I remember getting proposed to, and my initial reaction was like, say no, say no, say no. It was a beautiful proposal and I loved him. And I was like, it might just be me, right? Like my limiting beliefs around marriage. I said yes. We were married for a very short period of time and then had to go through a divorce. And that was so defeating to me, because to me, it was like such a extreme failure of something that I never wanted to do. A lot of people in my life didn't like that person. I was embarrassed. I felt like it was me. Like, I had always questioned my ability to be in a healthy relationship just because I had never seen them. And so that was one of the times that I felt like I really was gut punched. I don't react really hard to a lot of stuff. I can usually just like kind of dust myself off. But that was like some pretty big depression for a couple of months, I would say. And then I was like, never again, right? Like, I'm not gonna ever do this again. Ironically enough, I met my husband months later, fell in love, 4 kids, rapid fire, 2 step kids, 2 kids. Like, it changed everything for me. And so it ended up being a positive. And if I would have stayed with that person, the success of marriage, I would have been in a relationship that wasn't good for me. We just weren't good for each other. We didn't have the same wants and values and needs and ethics and standards and any of the things. We just weren't aligned. And so something that felt like such a big failure is the reason why I have the best parts of my life. My husband, my kids, we work in business together. I mean, I can't say enough about that being the thing I needed. But at the time, I mean, you couldn't have convinced me that wasn't the worst thing in the world.
Yep.
Yeah. That's wonderful.
And those kids are so lucky to have you guys as
True.
parents. We're going to include Dominic in the
Yeah, okay. That's fine.
So we'll give him some props.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you really had a different headspace of what that was, and it really was able to turn around and look at you now.
Yeah, I was better at my second marriage because of my first marriage, because I think a lot of people glamorize marriage. They like, it's the idea of marriage, right? It's the wet party and the dress and the ring and the carry over the threshold. And now I realized, after having that in my first marriage, I had a real wedding and I had all those things. And I was like, that was cool, but I had a shitty relationship. And then I go into my second marriage, we went to the courthouse. I was already knocked up. We had hopefully this doesn't offend anybody, but we're Mexican. We had a Mexican marriage, Dominic said, because I was already pregnant. And that was the way that we did it. Like it wasn't about that. It was about, I found somebody that I really wanted to be with, and it didn't matter if we had nothing. And at times in our relationship, that was the case. It wasn't superficial. It was very much about like, this is my partner and we're going to figure out. I knew he was the right one when I didn't always need to be right. That was the first time in my life that I wasn't like, every time I'm going to go till the bloody end, every round until it's knockout. That's when I was like, oh, okay, like it's more important to be together than to always be right. So
that is exciting.
did I give you enough time to think about yours?
You know, a lot of them that are coming to mind are a little bit traumatizing. So
okay, well, we don't have to get super deep if you don't want to.
We won't get super deep, but I think even just, you know, a lot of single parents could probably relate to, especially if you've had a child young, of, you know, those moments, right? When you find out that, hey, I'm pregnant and I was not expecting that, or maybe not even just young single moms, but just
in general,
where you are like, oh my goodness, was not planning for this.
I feel like teen mom and I was in my 30s. I was like, am I grown up enough to have these children? So I can't imagine.
And how scary that was. And for me, I was in college and I was a college athlete, and it was a feeling of, you know, failure to, you know, my team and to different things, and different dynamics happened during that time frame. And, you know, I wanted my son. And I said to myself, you know what, it's gonna be hard, but we're just gonna have to figure it out. And really, you know, pushing through. Many people in, you know, that situation would say, I'm gonna drop out of school, I'm gonna do this, yeah, I'm gonna do that. I graduated on time, I had a full-time job, and I was a college athlete all at the same time.
Yep.
And it was very, very hard. And it was something where in the moment I wanted to give up and I wanted to go hide behind, you know, in a corner and not talk to anyone, because also people on campus know me. And I was going to have to not only deal with those struggles, but also have to be dealing with, I'm the one who got pregnant, you know, a men's player and a women's player, you know, got pregnant and is now she's walking around campus. And so that for me was a big turning point, I think, in my life.
Yeah.
Of not, you know, I don't want to credit my work ethic towards that, but once you have a child in the world, you have to work a little bit harder for everything because you want to provide a great life for your child. So, you know, I could have easily just said, you know what, I'm going to throw in the towel, I'm going to sit and be, you know, just be at home for a while. I don't want to do this. And at the time, I kind of wanted to do that. Being
Sure.
first trimester pregnant, especially, I was sleeping sometimes 12, 14 hours a day.
Sounds
and
glorious.
like, and like some of my teammates have to be like, Laura, you got to go to class. They're doing checks today. You don't want to lose your scholarship because you're taking a nap. And so, you know, just those pieces where for me, it was a big turning point, that I decided to get up and do it every single day, minute by minute. And I think that's how we have to take it when we are in these hard places in our lives and we don't know what to do. Take it minute by minute, take it second by second, and push through and persevere. Because if I didn't have that experience, I'm not sure I would be where I am today.
Well, and I hope you don't mind me sharing, because you and I have talked about this before. You had people telling you, like, don't keep the baby and don't do this, and let, you know, they're not only were you already having to deal with something difficult, but you had people that you were looking up to telling you to do something completely different than what in your heart you knew was right. And so that's also like us listening to our inner selves, right? Of knowing that even though sometimes the decision is harder, this needs to be the decision. You have to get through this, I think, is really important. And, you know, we talk about business as well, obviously, on the podcast, and that's a big portion of our relationship as well. Same with even business difficulties. Like, people underestimate how much it takes to be an entrepreneur and go through the up and down of your business, and then go on top of, we also have real life. You're going through marriage stuff, or you're going through being a single mom and figuring out how to navigate that schedule. Moms to me are like the biggest heroes of all time. And single moms, I've never been one. Single moms are a whole nother level for me.
Never will be.
That's right. Cause it'll be RIP.
I've gotten there.
That's right. But that's the whole thing is like, I think that, we are a different level of person a lot of times when it comes to like, and there's dads out there too, right? Like some moms don't show up, some dads don't show up, but like parents showing up and also having to build their careers and also having to try to have friendships, also trying to have interest, life, that kind of stuff. So I think, for me, some of the trials and tribulations have been work related too, where something has knocked me out. We both worked for a company that this is another time that like, I really hated my job and my husband really hated his job. And at the time we were miserable because we weren't making that much money and we were very stressed out all the time and we were losing time with our kids. And so that felt like a big failure time. And then going and risking everything to go into commission only industry was terrifying. Hearing that 87% of people fail at that said industry was terrifying. And so the first couple of months did not feel like it was going to be a good decision or success. It felt like a really dumb mistake that was going to have our tail between our legs shortly.
And I mean, I can relate to that 100%, deciding to just get a U-Haul and get my real estate license. And a month later, I'm driving to Colorado, not knowing what to expect.
Yeah.
And just, hitting the ground running and just understanding you get put into the place where it's all or nothing. You gotta make it, or there's nobody there to help pick you up in the end. I could have very well came to Colorado, didn't do lead gen, didn't go meet people, didn't get transactions.
Or used excuses like I'm new here and I can't.
And used excuses. Yeah. And we've heard that how many times? I mean,
so many times.
Sometimes there were people that had lived in Colorado 10, 15, 20 years that were giving us that excuse. And I'm over here like, I've been here for 5 months.
Right.
Like what? And so, but it's that fire under your ass that's telling you, for me, it was just me. I either made it work or we were in trouble.
You were
like
back up, back home.
I wouldn't have had money to pack up to go back home.
I would have hooked you up.
Well, thank you. That's why you have friends, guys. and so that was, the dynamic. I had to make it work. And I think, looking back at my example of when I really struggled, that was also a struggle moment for me. But I knew I had enough confidence in what I've accomplished in the past that I knew there was no other option left to be successful in real estate. And I was going to make it happen. And I had to figure it out. And so I think so many times there's all of these small little instances in our lives that lead up to this bigger picture, because the first one I mentioned was one piece of my life where I've had so many other trials and tribulations in between that has led me to where I am today.
Yeah.
But without those experiences and those failures, I would not be where I am today.
For sure. It's interesting to me. It's kind of unfortunate. And I understand why, because it feels horrible when you're going through failure or when you're going through a reset or whatever the case may be. But it's so interesting to me because there's no one that I admire that hasn't had major learnings through that. There's just nothing else like it. There's no easy path that makes you as successful as having to dig deep and trudge through the mud and build yourself back up and do all of these things. And so when people, would ask about like, our real estate career and when we started and things like that, I had 4 kids and we went to a commission only industry together. The last thing we were going to do was have to, put our family in the worst situation because of this risk. So it was absolutely a risk, but it had to be hardcore risk. It was like we weren't working a full-time job. We were working double full-time jobs to try to make it work because we had no choice. Comfort sometimes is the killer of people's success, because when you don't have to do it, you may not. And if you have to do it, it's amazing the kind of results you can get. There's a book called Relentless Solution Focus. And it talks about that. It's like you have a solution within your control somehow in every situation. So when you start to train your brain to say like, all right, I can't control that I have no clients, but I can control how many people I go meet at the dollar store and gas station and networking events and those kind of things. Okay, I don't have any money right now, but I have things I can do to get money really quickly if I really put my head down and think. Like, you start to realize how much that changes a negative situation or a failure into a learning.
Well, and I think we always need to, any failure can be a learning as long as you're willing to be receptive to it, right?
Yeah.
You know, there's times where I have just really failed and I am mad about it, but I'm not taking those steps to have it be a learning. And later down the line, I go, you know what? This is what I can learn from that instance. And so I think that's, half the battle is accepting your failures.
Yeah, for sure. And it's humbling. I mean, especially in our industry, when you go into, real estate and certain industries where people posture a lot, they act like they're always winning and they act like they're the best and they act like they have all this money, and you start learning a little bit more and you start realizing like more people are struggling than they're letting on. And it would be helpful for them to kind of send that bat signal out to other people saying like, hey, this is how I'm getting through this, or this is what I'm struggling with. Can someone help me? And so I think that, we talk about a lot, the fact of creating a tribe of people that you can feel safe with, being open to when you're going to fail again. We're going to both fail again at some point or another, or maybe,
And the thing is, we're never going to grow if we don't fail. So, if you feel like, hey, I've been winning and winning and winning, how do you get to that next level?
DJ Khaled.
All I do is win. But
great singing voice.
Oh, thank you. It'll come in handy at some point. But anyways, you really aren't going to hit that next level if you're not going to fail at something.
Yeah, playing it safe is not going to be. There's a really great. He's a coach and a leader, and his name's Abe Sharif. And so if you've been with KW before, you've probably heard his name. If not, you should look him up. He's really awesome. He's very motivating to me. But he says, stop avoiding failure and push through that as fast as you can. Like, go head on towards that, right? Like, that's the whole thing. Is like, if you're not good, I hear this often where people are like, well, I'm not good at doing that. Get good at it.
Yep.
Stop wishing it was easier. Start wishing you were better. That's also from Fanatical Prospecting, another book. But I liked that quote because it said like, stuff's not good luck finding an easy life. Good luck finding, you know what? The last 50 years of my life, no problems, no stresses, no issues. Everything's good. Good luck.
She's 50
now. Wasn't talking about me. But that's the thing is like, good luck. Life's gonna kick you in the peaches. At some point or another, you're gonna have those situations at some point. And so if you can't get good at rolling with that and figuring out how to, like you said, you're gonna get knocked down, dust yourself off, get that going. And I'm always impressed by people's stories. Our guest today is somebody who has just that story where she had a not great start to her not only business, but some of her personal situations and catapulted that.
And definitely live by the quote, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So
I love those.
That's definitely something to keep in mind. I did have a Michael Jordan quote in my head, but it kind of went out of here.
We'll get back to it.
I'll get back. I'll get better at the quotes as we go further into our podcast. But, thinking of it that way, Michael Jordan, greatest basketball of all time, right? He still missed shots. And
totally.
And so how do you get better? He took more shots and took more shots in practice and failed and lost games so that he could learn from those and become the world's best basketball player. So definitely keep, those little things in mind, that even the greatest people of all time have still failed in their life and they have gotten better because of it.
Well, I think all the greatest people in life have failed, right? Because when you hear, if I tell you two stories of two individuals, and one, they came from a humble beginning and they had to work through things and they had all these failures and then they have success, everyone loves that. That's the underdog.
Yep.
When you hear like, hey, my dad gave me all the money and then I started this business and I blew it and then he gave me some more money and then I did, like nobody's like, that's awesome. You're like, you suck. Like, that is why we'll definitely be excited to get our new guest on and talk about that a little more. Okay, so we have amazing guests here. I'm super excited about this. Today we are going to be talking to Angela and Lauren, and I want you to tell me your company name and what you guys do and kind of give us a quick highlight before we get into our topic.
Absolutely. You want to start?
So our company name is Clarity for Your Chaos, and we are professional organizers for your space, whether it's business, residential, and for your mind. We help a lot with the grief homes, moving, packing, just taking the literal load off of you in order for your space to start serving you.
Amazing. Yeah, I loved just hearing even the chaos, everybody has chaos.
Oh,
We all
yes.
need that organizational feel. And you kind of said a little bit about when we talked about your business, you're really getting into an intimate space with people, right? Like your home, and there's a lot of shame that comes with that and a lot of different things. How did you guys get into that?
Well, my friends made me.
All good friends do that.
Actually,
I made my friend get into real estate.
She did, yes. Nothing leads to another.
That's right.
it really does. And so 4 friends who didn't know each other all told me in a week to become a professional organizer in 2019. And so I was like, this isn't a real job. People are going to pay me just to move their stuff around because it's more functional. Like, that's weird. But then by the 4th one, I was like, okay, universe. So I did. And then, when COVID hit, it really propelled things much farther than anything I could have ever imagined, because people's spaces needed to move constantly. And within a couple of years, I really needed help, at which point I relied on friends again to come in, because my mind is neurodivergent and there are certain things that I get stalemated at. And I needed somebody to be able to take that portion and run with it. And that's what I found in Angela.
Love that. That's amazing. So you've always just been organized? That's just always been your thing? Or how did you get into that?
Well, let's go back.
Take it back. Take it back.
Yes.
Way back.
So I was early diagnosed ADHD. So I was one of the few women diagnosed with ADHD in the 90s. My parents had access to military insurance, which also put me into a lot of therapy. So I had access to the people that were able to give me the tools that I needed in order to heal my executive dysfunction, or at least work on managing it. And that is a lot of what we focus on. Executive dysfunction is your organizational skills. That's what people with ADHD really struggle with. So I was given the opportunity to learn this, and now I can pass it along.
Wow.
And then it's just also a trauma response sometimes when you're trying to take control of your environment. And I think that I just kind of married a lot of those things together in order to be able to have that control over my life, since my brain worked against me in a lot of ways.
Wow. I think that's for a lot of people. I'm one of those people. Like when I need to focus, I need to be in a place that's like I can't, like I won't be able to, when there's a pile of laundry, I can't make these calls, or I can't. I need to get myself situated, and it will completely change my mood. My husband doesn't understand because I'm going to bed because the house is a mess. When the house is good, I'll feel okay, and I'll feel better about the situation. That I can kind of let go of the steering wheel. So I think a lot of people identify with that, and it's cool to see that you're bringing something that is so personalized to just your space does reflect onto your well-being. So
I think one thing that's unique about the way that we approach organization is that, I think we've all seen, the perfect closet and the perfect, right? You picture HGTV, right?
yes.
But I think the
Or
reality
Clueless,
is,
if you're old enough. That's always the class that I think of when I think about class.
but we don't go in with a one size fits all approach, because the reality is what you need out of a space to be functional, is very different than what you need out of a space.
Yep, totally.
So there are some, things that apply, but, I think that's one thing that's really cool about M.O.R.E. And she goes in and she evaluates the space, and she's like, oh, you need this and you need this and you like to see this, and this is why you have this pile here. And so it's, I've been organized many times over the years, but working with her, I've continuously learning new tips and tricks that really,
I love that.
yeah. And our clients, they have such a weight lifted from the beginning. They're like, I'm overwhelmed and I can't process all these things, and I can't remember. I mean, we had a client recently, she couldn't even remember my name from the beginning of the phone call to the end of the phone call. And she was just in tears
Drowning
every single time we talked to her. And by the end of us working with her, her face was, smiling and things were lighter. And she's like, hey, Angela, how's it going? It's cool to see the way it looks.
That's amazing. So you kind of started this business, and then how did you get involved with this, Angela? Like what happened to get that?
Yeah. So life handed me one of those moments that is completely yeah, we were talking earlier a little bit about divorce and things like that, right? And so
Yeah.
my background was in leadership development, operations management,
Okay.
mostly in the dental industry and the IT support industry for about a decade. And then I started to achieve a lot of the things that I thought I wanted, right? I was like, I'm going to climb all the way to the top of the corporate ladder and that's going to be me.
Yep.
And then I was like, I'm not the happiest doing all of these things.
Yeah.
So it's cool to
We can relate to that.
So I'm not
Yeah.
so happy, but actually I'm very stressed.
Yeah.
And also, especially in the medical industry, you start to dance an ethical line sometimes that profit versus, mission, they get very blended.
Yeah.
And music had come back into my life. And growing up, I was a singer and dancer and all that type of stuff. And one of my bosses, he said, "Do you want to start a band?" I said, "Sure, let's start a band." So I had an indie rock band for a couple of years, and my life kind of transitioned into being a musician.
Yeah.
And I started a leadership development, like online curriculum online, and that was kind of the goal for a while. And my ex-husband now, he was taking the reins on the financial things for a little while.
Okay.
That obviously didn't stand out the best. Hence the ex-husband part.
Right.
And Lauren and I had been, friends, not super close over the years. We didn't know each other super well, but we were in each other's orbit, shall we say.
Yeah.
And timing aligned, and we had started to get closer around the time that all of this happened. And she has her own story of difficult things she's gone through. And my ex-husband left. He told me he almost committed suicide, and it was a whole dramatic time in life. And, and all at a time when I had no job, and I had transitioned my life to be a musician. And so Lauren's assistant at the time, she was like, "Hey, so my assistant just left. I know that your skill set is way more than just this, but like, you want to come on board?" And I was like, "I'm sure, that seems cool. Like, I like organizing, and we're friends." So it started out as a part-time thing, and I was also working at a gay bar in Colorado Springs where all the servers are professional singers.
Oh, wow.
Is it still open?
That sounds good.
So they're rebuilding right now.
Okay. But
because
they're
there was
back
a
up.
fire.
Okay.
Soon it'll be back.
Okay.
It's called Icons. Everybody should go there. It's
I
the
love
funnest place in the world.
Oh, yeah.
And then
I'm
all of
into
the
it.
stars have just aligned because the fire happened, and then she was like, "Great, come on full time." And it's blossomed into a really beautiful partnership that I think we're both very grateful.
That's amazing. What a great overview of that. Okay, so just to kind of like pull everything together. So again, we want to promote great businesses. So if you're looking for organizational support, if you're looking for that, you said grieve cleaning and any extreme or not extreme situation, we want to support that. The whole purpose of this episode is all around building something beautiful from something shitty. that's
a great way to put it. Yes.
Thanks.
She went from, the lemons.
That's
to
right.
shitty,
Like lemon to lemonade, whatever you want to say. But I think that, whatever part of life you're in at the time, sometimes people need to hear that there's better days coming. And we were talking about divorce and starting a new company and all things that it sounds like we're pretty aligned with as far as the way these things all have come together.
Golly, have we walked through that?
Yeah. So
Don't even ask me about July 9th last year.
Okay. It's very specific even.
We will.
About 11:01.
We'll stick with the July 8th.
That's right. Well, July 8th or above. Okay. So tell me about something that was pivotal that felt like it was a big failure and it turned into something that was needed for success. Either one of you can go first.
July 9th.
Okay. So are we opening?
So are we able to ask about this?
No, honestly, this was one of the worst weeks of my life. My mother was put on hospice on Monday. My divorce was finalized on Tuesday. 2 weeks prior, our Airbnb we were staying in until my divorce was finalized flooded, and they told me I had 2 weeks to get out with my family. And so we found a house to move into. We started moving that Thursday. By Sunday, my mother passed.
Oh my goodness.
You want to talk about just literally just knees to the ground.
Yeah.
That week took me out, but you know what it did do? It gave Angela the opportunity to run the entire business because there was no way.
Yeah. You had needed.
And in order for her to be able to have done what she's done with our business, she needed to be the one in the thick of it for the first time like that. And actually having to make the decisions because I was nowhere to be found.
Right.
I mean, I was crying in my room, but
We've all been there.
Yeah.
And so I think that sometimes a big part of what happens to us in these moments is the fact that like allowing yourself to let go of certain things because other people might be able to run with them much better. And by reducing that load, you actually get to like focus on your own healing.
For sure. Yep. For sure. And well, and the thing is that we all need to know when it's just time to just let go of the stuff that we can't, right? And so again, that's the important part of finding good partners and finding good friends and people to kind of pick up your burdens that they can when it's time. But also to your point, that's when a lot of growth happens with other individuals as well. So I think that, as unfortunate as I'm so sorry that you dealt with all of that in that span, it sounds like it got out of the way for another good chapter to come again and to do all, good things within your business.
Well, it was a closing period for sure in a lot of different areas of my life. And I get that now. In the thick of it, you just don't see.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful. I am grateful because from all of that, there were like certain things that led to like each thing had a butterfly effect in different areas of my life that opened the door for so many other things. I tell people that might be dating, you don't want to have a placeholder.
Yep.
For sure.
And that goes for a lot of different areas of your life. We use placeholder in organization because if you constantly are throwing your keys in a certain area or dropping stuff, like you need to put something functional in its place so that way you don't impede that function as a placeholder. But if you would like to attract something good into that spot, you need to remove the placeholder.
Interesting. Yeah, we kind of talked about that even with like friendship, like just not filling something just for the sake of it, like really being intentional. So I love that numerous times when we talked before, you said different things that it's like it's completely tied into your business and it's good for overall life as well. And I love anything that can be an analogy for both because it's meaningful.
Yeah, I think that that's one of the things that allows us to make such an impact in the business is because we have walked through tough things.
Yeah.
And sometimes people come to us because they're just moving, right? And they're like, hey, I'm busy.
I need help
to handle everything. And we're like, no problem. We've got you. We'll take care of it. Your TV is hung. All of your IT equipment is transferred. You've got it. But a lot of times people are coming to us when they're drowning.
Yeah.
And they're overwhelmed and they're really ashamed of their mess.
Yeah.
And I think as a society, we've been conditioned to not want to talk about the fact that like when we're losing it. And I think that was probably one of the most powerful lessons for me last year. And I'm a pretty open book with people most of the time, but I mean, that was a whole new version of broken that I had ever experienced in my life. I was with my husband for 14 years. So most of my adult life and everything got flipped upside down. And all of a sudden, the simplest things become so overwhelming. Like I need to eat today. I'm going to get out of bed and I'm going to eat today.
Take a shower.
And I didn't sleep all night because all I could do, but you have this community that if you allow people to see your pain, it's amazing the ways that people will rise up and support you. And I mean, I'll never have enough words or gratitude to give or any way enough to give back to the people who gave to me last year because they did. I mean, they held me up through the hardest times of my life. And Lauren was one of those people. And be like, I'm going to cry again. Oh, sorry your first day. And she's like, it's okay. We're allowed to have an off day. And that's another thing. We really do. Somehow our off days balance each other. She's like, today's one of my days. I'm like, it's cool.
Tag in today. That's important too. I think it's important to say like, there's going to be those days like we're human, we're going to be off, we're not going to have the best scenarios all the time, but it's important to find that partnership. I think in business, this episode was all around, turning negatives into positives, but it's also about the people you need in order to be able to do that. It's a pretty lonely road if you have no one to ever lean on. And sometimes it's our own fault for not being able to like trust in opening up and doing those things. So it's cool that you guys have been able to do that. Yeah. What would be some motivating words for someone that's really going through it right now that, you feel like, I'm down and out. I feel like things are pretty hopeless right now. If you could go back to yourself in those struggles and say, this is what would be soothing to me that it's going to be okay, what would that look like?
I think for me, I would say this is entirely normal and this is part of the process. You're allowed to feel so sad and you're allowed to feel so angry and you're allowed to feel so betrayed. But at the end of it, like this doesn't last forever.
Yeah.
And you're not alone. So pick up the phone, call the people when you're crying. Don't sit in your room by yourself because there are people who care so much about you and who've been through this before. And they're gonna help you through it.
I love that piece of advice. I don't know, you're going to learn about me that I constantly reference books because I'm obsessed with all these different books, but there's a book called The Happiness Trap. And it talks about, oh, it's so good. It talks about that is the biggest trap that people have, is thinking that being unhappy is abnormal. It is so normal, and it needs to be acknowledged, because when you ride the wave versus going against it, it passes so much faster. And, you know, I came from two parents that were both substance abusers. And so I grew up very, in a very toxic environment. And I realize now as an adult, they had a lot of trauma and they wanted to mask it so bad that it just kept snowballing, because they never just lived through like, it's okay to feel sad, it's okay to deal with this directly. And I think that that's one of those things where, you know, saying this is normal and this is okay, and you should feel heartbroken and you can be mad and you can feel disappointed and you can feel all these things. It gives this like grace to yourself to be able to like ride that wave, and it passes so much fast. I've learned that as an adult, of like me resisting it and thinking I'm okay and trudging it comes back anyway. It's gonna come up and go,
Ten times.
Fine, it's okay.
It comes back even worse.
oh yeah, it's 10 times worse when you can't give yourself the grace to do that. So I love that.
Freaked out, insecure, neurotic, emotional. You're doing fine.
I loved that. Right?
That with me on a daily basis. Give me a call.
I know.
Yeah.
I think for me, the thing that kind of always got me through is J.K. Rowling said this one time.
Oh, I love this.
And she said, rock bottom became the solid foundation to which I chose to build my life.
I love that. I love that.
I love that.
Yeah, we talked about the fact that it's not super inspirational to hear somebody say like, hey, you know, I had a pretty easy life and then parent gave me a lot of money and opened some businesses and it all went really great.
Yeah.
The end, you know, everyone's like, cool, good for you. That's fantastic, but can't relate.
Yeah.
When you start hearing people's like trials and tribulations, and when you start realizing, okay, that could have been the end of the chapter, but then they went and opened a whole nother set of, you know, chapters going through what was going to be the success of those lessons. We talked about that, like turning things into lessons. It's so powerful. And I, you know, when learning a little bit about your business and how this all was formed, it was inspiring to me to say like, all right, we were struggling and now we're helping other people struggling. And that's the kind of thing that's really impressive. So I love that. You do some work with nonprofit stuff too, right? And do some things with like, tell me a little bit about that.
So this is the part where I'm going to get verklempt because it's my
We need to have a little tissue bug.
I
right?
know.
Like, we're getting too deep.
My mom had a brain tumor ever since the third grade, so we've been taking care of her for a long time. My family. So up until the point that she passed, it was a long haul. Now she was relatively great after a surgery up until maybe about 5 to 6 years ago. But we've still had to like manage my mom and dealing with a brain without anxiety. That led me to not want to live at home by the time I was 16. So I actually ran away from home at 16 and lived in a tent. And that's where the Costco is on Powers in Colorado Springs, which is, I'm glad that's there now because it was not a great area in town.
Yeah.
Somehow I have escaped a lot of different opportunities for negative things to happen to me, and I'm grateful.
I love that you worded it like that.
Yeah.
Negative opportunities.
But overall, at that point, I moved from that to an actual apartment, working on like Taco Bell wages, and actually like that's nothing. And having to build a life off of that and go through very bad things. Like my boyfriend was starting to deal with a meth dealer. He started cashing fraudulent checks. I walked into my apartment. He put a gun to my head and told me to get him his money because they'd been cashing them on my bank account without my knowledge. At which point I decided I'd made poor choices and I went home. Clearly. And at that point, my parents really put me in a full-blown rehab facility. But seeing the process of how people actually live in the cycle of poverty, the way that it was, is the part that really gets me going, because I got to the apartment, but how do I cook a meal? And I don't have enough money to buy pans to cook a meal, but I can't necessarily afford to go to McDonald's every day, and that's not healthy.
Right.
So how am I supposed to set this up if I just barely scraped up enough money to get to an apartment?
It's a vicious cycle.
It is a vicious poverty cycle. And so with that, we want to try to break that because there's so many people who, because of maybe the way their brain works or the privileges that they have or things that they have, like we could diversify the items that are in America in order for people to really have like equal grounding. Like somebody who's really bogged down by items, getting rid of them gives them a clear playing field for them to do whatever they want. And then giving those items that are in great condition to somebody who could really use them really levels the playing field for them to be able to be successful.
Yes.
So that's what's really inspired our Robin Hood initiative.
Oh,
Love it.
I love it.
Because anytime I'm taking our trailer around the city, I block the time and refer to it as Robin Hooding. because-
Robin Hood with consent. Robin Hood with consent.
Consent is yeah.
Whatever.
Really working.
I'm cool with
But that's, you know, and in this project, we also have noticed that, you know, we want to work with people that are in depression homes, but they can't necessarily always help, like afford our services.
Yeah.
So applying for grants and training our team members so that way those grants could afford us to be able to be like, yes, we will take care of your depression home. Or like if you're
Yes.
coming out of a depression home or a grief home, like, yes, we'll be able to help you if your husband completed suicide and you need to go through this stuff, like absolutely. And we can help you with that, you know, in so many different ways. And so having that kind of project going on the side that we can really support is really where the passion part comes from. Because if we heal the root, we can heal the tree.
That's it. I
love
absolutely
that.
love that. And I think when you were telling me about that before, I think there's so much waste, right? And I identify with your story. So there's been many things that you've been talking about that I'm like, yes. And up to when I was 12, I had 2 addict parents, like I said. And I think that, you know, when I realized the fact that it is such a generational situation that you're going in. It's not a small situation. It's not something that's like, oh, just make different decisions or just do better or just be in better relationships or, you know, whatever the case may be, go to school, whatever that looks like. It is a lot working through. And there's so much waste happening in, you know, people getting rid of furniture. I live in a neighborhood now that I joke all the time that I'm like the poor person in the neighborhood. And anytime anybody puts anything on Marketplace or the neighbor, I'm like, I want it because I'm so like, oh my gosh, it's such a good, you know, like I still have that. I can't waste food. Like those things
Quality
are all,
stuff that she's getting.
It is
too.
quality
Market
stuff. I'm telling you.
I think that's a good flea market.
I meant, oh yeah. So, you know, same with food, those kind of things, waste. And so waste has always been a big thing, but it's incredibly difficult sometimes to find ways to get, you know, I've wanted to give food before and nobody would take it. I've wanted to give furniture before and no one could take it. So I love the fact that you're figuring out how to do it on your own devices because it's very easy for someone to be like, I want to help, but like nobody's taking it and I'm busy and oh well. And so you're taking it into your own hands.
There's trailer loads, just trailer loads and trailer loads and trailer loads of donations. And, you know, so to be able to get those, we recently helped a refugee family. Their story was so crazy.
Oh my God.
You know, but now they're all set up and they're in their new apartment and their family's back together for the first time in what, like 5 years?
And they
Wow.
have hands to be able to make big meals with, and they're able to actively do that in a way that serves their culture
Yeah.
versus a way that serves our culture. So we look for things specifically for them, large serving pans, because they don't just cook a meal and put it in a little dish, which is what you're going to find if you go to Walmart, right?
Yep.
You're not going to find these large pans for them to cook and then sit on the floor. They didn't want a table, right?
They want it.
You
Yeah.
want to get them the things that are going to serve them and make them feel as comfortable as possible.
And the gift that somebody has when they have an experience like that and they're able to really embrace the community feel, that's something that just is getting further and further away. They said, this is a trivia moment, the thing that really broke down community living was a modern day technology piece. What do you think it was?
Something related to a phone, but I feel like I'm wrong.
Way before that.
Way before that.
Refrigerator. Because before refrigeration, people had to share their food. And so if you caught a big fish or if you had a buffalo or if you had a cow or whatever you had, you couldn't refrigerate it. You couldn't keep it for yourself. You had to share. And as people got more independent with being able to keep things to themselves, they got more and more recluse, which makes you lonely, right? Like that's the whole thing. And so I think just hearing you guys say, it's not about our own well-being and that we've made it, that's an accomplishment in itself. Being able to be good when you come from dark places is just getting at, my friend just told me that the other day. She said, sometimes just getting out of bed is a win, you know,
Yep.
like that
Yeah.
in certain parts of your life, girl, if you're getting out of bed or taking a shower or feeding yourself when you have to eat, that's amazing. But then
Hard thing.
how do you level up to where when you're good, Now you start looking around at who else you can pull up with you. I think that's amazing. What do you got, Laura?
I'm just a quiet person in the corner over here.
She's drank 3 energy drinks today, so she's probably buzzing.
Now
right
I'm like mellowing out a little bit. My ADHD's like,
right. She's listening. But what are some things people can do to help you with your initiatives? Like, what can people do to support you?
Yeah, so we are actually in the process of launching sponsorships.
Okay.
So if you want to be a part of the Robin Hood Project, obviously
Can I wear
Realty-
tights?
You
Yes.
can.
Okay.
Yeah,
we're gonna have to get you a hat.
Yeah, I need a hat with a feather as well.
Video in the tights and the.
I'm down.
I do have a question. I do have one
Yes.
question. When you do this Robin Hood, do you have a hat?
No, I now need it. I didn't really think of that. I think that needs to be put in.
We're gonna.
I will support if we also get hats.
Yeah.
I will say this, I would like him to be Little John.
Our partner is 6'8", 6'9".
Wow.
He's a real life giant.
Okay.
I would like him to be.
Is he single?
No, he's fine.
Okay. Actually, no, ma'am. Back the hell up. I thought she was like, I feel you, girl. That's what I would say. I'd be like, no, he's not.
Yeah, so we have sponsorships. Our goal is to get into doing more workshops in the community, obviously finding grants.
Yes.
We do also do charity gives back projects.
Okay.
When we have clients we meet who just can't afford our services, but we can see, you know, they're in that cycle of depression, in the cycle of poverty. And you can look around their space and be like, man, if we could transform the space for you, the opportunities and the doors would just open wide up. So in addition to giving back to those places, our goal eventually long-term is to open our own nonprofit side of the business and have something called the Free Store, which will be a place where people can just come and get the things that they need. So donations and sponsorships along the way would be immensely helpful to a small business who are.
I love that.
I love that.
And you're in the Springs, right?
We are.
Are you for sure? Oh yeah, we're gonna kick out all kinds. I know. Same. We'll go anywhere we need to go. Have you heard of Urban Peak?
Yes, but I am, but not well enough to know.
So my husband also grew up homeless, and he lived in this boys shelter. It is what it was initially, and they've really grown since the start of it. And so now they have all of this adult housing and career support and all these different, trades and just mental health, all these different things. But the cool thing is they also have a store, and it's essentially for the normal consumer, a thrift store. But it's also a free store for those in need. So they kind of that's how they make their money, is anything that, can be purchased and be used. They absolutely will get that income. But anybody that needs those resources can just come and get what they need for free. And it's pretty cool. I worked in a place in Vegas that did the same thing, but it sounds like you guys are on your way to really creating something that's going to be your own piece of, impacting a whole group of people that need that support, whatever that looks like.
That's certainly the goal, but hey, we're here to partner with anybody.
That's it.
Way, right?
Yes.
It takes a village,
Yes.
just like you were saying about the community. I mean, there is a loneliness epidemic, so, and in business and wherever.
Should someone want to sponsor, is the easiest way to call you guys, email you guys? What's the best way to get in contact with you?
You can call us, you can email us, you can text us. Any platform works.
I love that.
Perfect.
It's 719-660-06.
And we'll have it right at the bottom, right here. So
we will make sure people get your
Perfect.
contact information. But that's the whole thing is, when Lauren and I talked, we talked about the fact that we're trying to build a good tribe of people who just really want to support each other and figure out how to do business together. Obviously, with us being in real estate, we do have people that are moving and need organization and need to prep their house and need to do those things. And so we want to support in that way, but also just, giving any way we can to help get that going. And you are a great example of exactly what we were talking about, which is turning, what did I say? I said the more PC version was lemons into lemonade, but turning rough shit into good shit.
yes, and eventually not shit.
And then eventually not shit.
There was one quote that came to mind earlier. So Tom Bailu, he always says, failure is the most information-rich data stream available to us. And I think it's just so applicable what you're talking about.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
We learn so much from the hardest moments and the moments when we fail. Like that is where all the learning happens. So,
And I even like the philosophy of learning. So you have to take your own failures and learn from them, so you don't keep repeating it. Because you see those people, right, where you're like,
Oh yeah.
and you got to hit a couple of times before you catch it. And that's okay. Like been that person. So I'm saying, you know what, that's been me. But it's also one of those things where it's like human nature. This is a quote from somebody that I can't give credit to because I don't remember who said it, but I loved the quote. And they said, human nature is that you have to learn from failure. The beauty is that you don't have to learn from your own failure. So it's also like looking around, using each other to say like, okay, what did you learn? Like asking those questions. I don't think we say that enough. Like, hey, I know we went through a really rough time and you catapulted out of it. What did you learn? How did you learn that? How can I love when people use my bad decisions as a cautionary tale versus going and doing it the same way.
Yep. And some people just have to learn the hard way, myself
Yes.
included,
Mhm.
because, you know, there's just so many times where you think that, hey, they failed at that, but I could probably do it better and I'm going to propel
test
through
that?
this. I test that. And so sometimes it's great. Most of the time it's not. But you really have to fail in order to succeed. And you're never going to, you know, elevate in your life or your business if you don't try something.
For sure. I identify with that with like men. You know, the person's what? It's different with me. Like they're gonna be like, no, it's not. It's really probably not. Like they're probably still a dirtbag, and you should probably
know what?
Not the magical solution.
You think they are, but you're not.
They may not be.
Awesome. Is there anything else that you want us to know about you, about your business, to share your story? What's something that you feel like needs to be said before we
Yes,
tie
the
this
only
up?
thing that I would say is your mess is nothing to be ashamed of. We've all been there in that moment. So we're literally a free virtual consult away. If you're sitting there just thinking and you have questions and you're like, I'm not sure if this is the right fit, or maybe mine is too much, or anything like that. If you have questions or you just need a friend to talk to, we're here. So we have a mental health check-in form on our website. You know, we just want to help make the world a better place. So
I always tell my clients when I walk in the door and they start apologizing for their dishes, "So sorry about the dishes." And I'm like, well, first of all, the dishes' purpose is to get dirty. So when we take all emotion out of it, there's that. And
Right.
Martha Stewart is a felon.
You said it on the phone. I loved that. She goes, I'm gonna get sued by Martha Stewart one day. I was like, maybe no. I love that because it's talking about, you know, people there's nobody I've ever met that's perfect. You got your career together, you might have family struggles. You have your family struggles, you might have diet struggles. You don't have diet struggles, you might have drug struggles. You might have something somewhere that's falling apart. And we have this juggling act of trying to, and you know, like we talked about, like you have to face those things and know that it's normal. It's not going to be perfect. I do not have the gift of organization. And so as soon as you said that, I was like, man, there's so many things I could use for that. And I just love that because our gifts are all different. And if we leverage each other versus trying to compete or hide from each other, I think that that's huge.
Yep.
Yeah. What's costs look like? Like how do you do pricing? Is it just basis by basis? Like how does that work?
This one, I don't know that was coming again.
Yeah.
I
So
love that.
yeah,
It's just
right.
instant.
One of our things is we always try to
Hello?
meet you wherever you're at in your budget. So if you just need coaching sessions, we can come in, you know, meet with you once a month or every, you know, couple of weeks or something like that and just give you guidance on your project. So if you need something that's a little more cost effective, we'll generally start with at least mini sessions so we can get a good baseline of where you're at. So that normally starts around 300 for our smallest packages.
Okay.
Depending on like the size of the home and the amount of clutter, you know, packages can go up to like 8 to 10,000 depending on what we're doing.
Yeah.
So we really try to meet you where you're at.
And so people shouldn't be fearful that they can't necessarily afford that. There's a solution that can be something that is
Absolutely.
within their means.
Yeah. Now, you know, you might have to, we're going to give you homework.
Sure.
Budget friendly option. You're going to have to do it
That's
fancy.
right.
But
Sweat
also,
equity.
if you want us to come in and do it all for you, we
That's
can do that
right.
too.
That's
Yep.
right.
Do you find people starting with the budget friendly and then going, oh my gosh,
I want more.
I don't want to do this myself?
A lot of times.
Okay.
They come back and they're like, you know what? Why don't we just get everything done? Or they'll say, like, let's just start with the kitchen. And then after the kitchen is done, they're just like, oh, now the office, now this, now this, now this.
Mhm.
And that's also
it
another,
feels so good.
Yeah, it feels so good. And it's also another budget friendly option. Like we don't have to do everything all at once. Let's just be very honest about that being a piece of it, like broad spectrum advice.
Yeah.
Like not everything all at once makes you a crazy mess. And so if you take on one thing at a time, sometimes if you take care of the kitchen will then reverberate back into the rest of the house.
Mhm.
Right. And so you have to think about the way that the house is flowing and functioning. So that's where we want to start.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we do work with businesses too. So that's a piece that people don't always realize.
Yeah.
We do business organization. We're building out actually a workshop at the Castle Pines water treatment facility.
Yeah,
right
that's
now.
what you were saying.
So
In their office, we're doing all kinds of office organization,
so
going
cool.
through paperwork. And we got like 150 banker boxes of paperwork gone through and went through the lawyer, and then we shredded it for them.
Wow.
So when you're talking about like large jobs, we can accomplish a lot more than your average hometown organizer because of the entire skill set of my team.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, to just kind of tie a bow on what is so valuable about what you're bringing a piece to more than just the physical aspect of things, right? And it's always shocking to me the things we put importance on spending money and the things we don't. And I think that a lot of times these kind of things are, oh, that's expensive, or, oh, I don't know if I should spend money on that. And yet we go spend money on going and having cocktails at night and spending $150 or, you know, a bag or whatever you're into, whatever you're golfing. I don't know what people's vices are. I don't leave the house, but
I'm sorry. Every time she tries to bring up a sport, it's so funny. And
Like,
then
not
she'll
the
look at me
athletes in
and
the
be able
room.
to be like,
me too.
What
I don't
else?
sport well.
I don't sports ball.
Theater kids.
I don't sports. Same choir, theater. Yes, I feel
this
you.
is why I'm quiet in the
That's
corner.
right. But I think when you start to realize the fact of like, what is a better investment than in yourself, and whatever is going to make you feel good and going to make you feel like you can accomplish what you need to accomplish. And our homes are one of those things, like you said, that during COVID, it just turned into way more importance than it's ever been. And I don't think it'll ever go back to where people turn a blind eye the way they did before. But I love your story. I love, hopefully, you know, people are hearing and finding some inspiration on the fact that whether it's relationship, hardship, or family, or sickness, or whatever the case may be, it's all going to be okay. And you just have to, what did you say? Just live through it.
Just walk through it. I don't remember what words I used exactly, but my best friend last year, she said to me every morning, remember, just one hard thing today. Just one hard thing.
Yes.
So if you're in a place where everything feels overwhelming, just start with one thing that day. And
Yeah.
that's enough.
Yeah. No, I love that. I appreciate your time. I'm so excited I got to get a chance to interact with you guys, and we want to support your business, and we want to build this awesome tribe with you and keep winning.
Thank you for having us.
Thank
We're honored to
you.
be here.
Thank you.